The wind howled outside as snowflakes clung to the windows of the little diner. Inside, the air was warm, filled with the smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon. Maya moved between tables with practiced grace, her smile never fading despite the exhaustion tugging at her eyes. The night was almost over, but she treated every customer with the same warmth, no matter how big or small their order. In the far corner, a man sat hunched over, his coat frayed at the edges, the kind of face you'd forget if you didn't look twice. He scanned the menu slowly, finally settling on the cheapest item, a single slice of toast with black coffee. His tone was curt, almost challenging, as though daring her to dismiss him as unworthy of her attention. Maya didn't flinch. She scribbled the order down and asked, "Would you like it with butter?" "No extra charge." Her kindness was effortless, not forced, as if she didn't even notice his gruff manner. While she bustled about, the man's eyes followed her. Beneath the worn coat, he was no struggling stranger. He was a billionaire, one who had come here with a purpose. He wanted to see something money couldn't buy, the way a person treated someone who could offer nothing in return. This wasn't just dinner for him, it was a quiet test of character. And as Maya carried the simple plate to his table with the same care she gave every customer, he knew the real story had just begun. The bell above the diner door jingled as a gust of icy wind swept through, but Maya hardly noticed. She was focused on refilling coffee cups and checking on a family in the corner. When she returned to the man's table, she noticed his hands trembling slightly as he wrapped them around the mug. His eyes were tired, the kind of tired that went deeper than just a long day. She caught a glimpse of the inside of his coat, no wallet, just a few crumpled bills and some coins. Without hesitation, Maya disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a steaming bowl of soup. She set it down gently beside his toast and said, "You look like you could use a little extra warmth tonight." Her voice was soft, genuine, without a hint of pity. She didn't know that she had just passed the first part of his silent test. What the man didn't realize was that Maya was fighting her own battles. Her mother was in the hospital, and every paycheck seemed to vanish into bills before she could breathe. Still, she never let her struggles show. She believed kindness wasn't something you gave only when life was easy, it was something you offered even when your own heart was heavy. The man studied her face, trying to understand why someone with so little to spare would give more. Outside, snow kept falling, but inside, a quiet warmth was spreading, and it wasn't just from the soup. The man sipped his coffee slowly, watching Maya move about the diner. He decided to push the boundaries of her patience. With a faint frown, he complained that the coffee was too bitter. Most servers might have sighed or rolled their eyes, but Maya simply nodded, took the mug, and returned with a fresh cup, this time placing it on the table with a smile. "This one's on me," she said softly. When he ate his toast, he left crumbs scattered across the table. She returned to wipe them away without a single trace of annoyance. Her voice stayed warm, her movements calm, as though serving him was no different from serving anyone else. Before she walked away, she quietly slipped a small paper bag into the pocket of his coat. He hadn't asked for it, and she didn't mention it aloud. Inside was a simple sandwich, wrapped in wax paper. She didn't know his story, but she assumed he might need it later. It wasn't charity in her eyes, it was just human decency. She treated every act of kindness as normal, the way breathing is normal. She wasn't trying to impress him, and she certainly didn't expect anything in return. The billionaire, still playing his role, felt a strange tug in his chest. In a world where people often gave only when they had something to gain, here was a woman giving freely, without knowing she was being tested, without knowing her actions were about to change her life forever. The man finished the last sip of coffee and reached into his pocket, pulling out just a few coins. He placed them on the table, not nearly enough to cover the meal. Maya glanced at the change, then at him, and simply said, "Don't worry about it. I'm glad you came in tonight." There was no frustration, no judgment, only sincerity. Slowly, he stood and removed his worn, weathered coat. Beneath it was a perfectly tailored suit, the kind only the wealthy could afford. Maya's eyes widened, confusion flickering across her face. He straightened his posture, no longer the hunched, weary man she had served all evening. "My name is Daniel Hart," he said, his voice now calm and steady. "I'm not who I seem tonight." He told her the truth. He was a billionaire philanthropist, visiting small towns to see how people treated those who appeared to have nothing. "Kindness without expectation," he said, "is the rarest thing in the world." From inside his suit jacket, he pulled a thick envelope and placed it in her hands. "For your mother's hospital bills," he explained, somehow already knowing her struggle. Maya's breath caught, tears blurring her vision as she clutched the envelope, feeling the weight of both the money and the moment. The test was over, but the lesson was eternal. Her small, everyday kindness had been worth more than she could ever have imagined, and it had just changed her life. Maya stood frozen for a moment, the envelope warm in her trembling hands. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but her voice caught in her throat. Daniel gave her a gentle nod, as if to say no words were needed, then slipped his coat back on and headed for the door. The bell above it jingled as he stepped into the snowy night. Through the frosted glass, she watched him disappear into the white, his figure fading with each step. The diner felt quieter now, but also somehow brighter, as though the kindness exchanged had left a glow behind. She finally opened the envelope and gasped. Inside was more than enough to pay off her mother's medical bills, enough to give them a fresh start. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they weren't just from relief, they were from the realization that genuine compassion never goes unnoticed, even when you think no one is watching. Clutching the envelope to her chest, she whispered to herself, "Kindness comes back to you." The words felt like a promise, something she would carry for the rest of her life. As she returned to her tables, the warmth in her smile was different now, deeper, steadier. And somewhere out in the snow, Daniel walked on, smiling to himself, knowing he hadn't just given away money, he had invested in a soul that already understood the richest truth of all: humanity is the greatest currency.